Hi, the daily news analysis. So let us begin our discussion by first looking at the topics we are going to discuss today. Usually, many students assume that Sunday newspaper does not contains a lot of important articles. Yes, with regard to editorials, we have very few important articles. But if you scan through the newspaper thoroughly, you will come across a number of articles, especially that are relevant for prelims. So today we do have some detailed articles, but many of them are a repetition, and we have an article related to tuberculosis which we have covered repeatedly in the last few classes. We have an article on the ban on import of laptops, right? All these topics is some of these are topics which have covered repeatedly. So today let us try to do something a little different so that it will help you cover more and more topics for your prelims and also for your mains. I have chosen the 4 articles for a detailed discussion. The articles themselves are very small, and I will try to add in additional information and analysis that could help you in your mains. And we have plenty of prelims articles where we have to just to focus on factual part of it, just a brief discussion on these topics, because today we have plenty of them, and trust me, why they could be very helpful for your so before we begin, why don't you give your support by pressing the like button and share your comments and do subscribe to our channel. Let's get started with the analysis of the today's Hindu newspaper, starting with the first article. The first article is from the page 11. The topic deals with manuscripts. According to the article, it has been reported that the government of India is working on a bill to conserve manuscript and to promote the bringing of manuscripts from abroad and digitizing them in order to revive the historical traditional knowledge which is preserved in these manuscripts. So the topic is very relevant for history, even for polity and governance. So let us cover this in detail. Let us understand what are the manuscripts, the significance of manuscripts, and why India is trying to conserve them, and what measures are being suggested, and that's a proposal from the Ministry of Culture. According to the article, several important Indian manuscripts dating back to several centuries that contains rich information about ancient medieval India, and they have been dispersed across the country, around the world. Many of these important manuscripts, they are distributed in several libraries and as well as in the hands of private collectors, not just in India but around the world as well. In fact, many of these manuscripts, the important ones are either in UK or in US, preserved in libraries and museums abroad, or it's in the hand of private collectors abroad. So India is making an attempt to conserve these manuscripts, to digitize them and consolidate India's digital traditional knowledge. So the Ministry of Culture, which is the concerned ministry here, has reportedly proposed a concept, that it has brought out a concept paper which will help in drafting a bill which is tentatively known as National Manuscripts Bill 2023. This is according to the article in Hindu. The government has not officially confirmed this, but based on the sources from Ministry of Culture, Hindu has brought out this article that the ministry is working on concept paper which will help in drafting a bill called the National Manuscripts Bill, which is likely to be tabled in the winter session. So that is the reason why the topic in news. So first let us understand what manuscripts and what's the significance of manuscripts. The term manuscript is drawn from the Latin word manuscript. Manuscriptum essentially means anything that is written, any document which is available in written format. The Latin term manuscript refers to any document which is handwritten. So this becomes a manuscript in English. So it is essentially a handwritten document that contains a significant historical information. It is either written on a tree bark or a piece of cloth, or on a piece of metal, especially copper plates, maybe on palm leaves as well, or on the paper including papyrus, and as well as it could be inscribed on stone. So, any such written documents on any of these materials in any language which contains historically significant information. It could be relevant for religion, philosophy. It could be relevant to understand the history of a particular region. It could contain a few adverse set of details and facts, or it could even contain the scientific advancement and the literary heritage and cultural heritage of particular civilization that have thrived in that region. So these are essentially historical documents. Today, if you have Wikipedia, then if you have books which are printed right back in those days, such vital information, important facts and knowledge they were preserved by writing them on any of these materials, either on the bark of a tree, which could be constructed in form of a paper, or on a piece of cloth or metal or palm leaf, or even inscribed on stone. This inscription handwritten document is what we refer to as manuscript. And India being a very rich civilizational as a country with a rich civilizational cultural heritage, it is home to one of the largest resources of manuscripts in the world. These manuscripts, they depict ancient and medieval India. They give us enormous details about India's ancient civilization. It gives us details about the rich cultural heritage of the country, the evolution of the different religions, and the rise and fall of different empires. So as a result, these documents, they hold a lot of historical value to understand our past and the lesson they offer. They can be applied in today's world as well. For example, there are manuscripts that contains few scientific facts. There are few manuscripts that contains agricultural details. Now this is something you can link to the modern world as well, and apply it in the real world to draw some benefits, along with improving our understanding of history and appreciating our own civilization and culture. So, India being a land of multiple thoughts, be it religious thoughts, philosophical thoughts, be the advances that happened in science, literature, art, culture, right? They are all documented in these manuscripts. That is why it is called the critical resource for understanding our past, and also to drive to developmental activities. It is in this regard to the government of India has consistently focused on conserving and protecting these manuscripts. The Ministry of Culture, which is nodal ministry, has a few initiatives in place to preserve this knowledge, to protect and conserve these manuscripts present in India as well as abroad. So it gives you insight into India's knowledge systems. See, India is a birthplace of all non-Abrahamic religions. Multiple religions have evolved, thrived in Indian subcontinent. Different philosophical thoughts have come up there. There are great literary works, details regarding empires, administration, details regarding agriculture, or basic facts about a place, the historical significance of the place, right? All such details are enshrined in these manuscripts, and that is why they are a treasure trove of knowledge for the current generation. It is essentially preserves our intellectual heritage, right? This is handwritten documents on stones, copper plates, birch bark. Birch trees is the preferred bark for writing manuscript. Palm leaves, papyrus, parchment and paper, right? All these materials have been used to write down the important information and knowledge during ancient and medieval times, because that was much knowledge could passed down to generation, and other tradition was oral tradition, where people could orally pass down the knowledge and the information. But other way of passing down information through generation was by writing down these manuscripts. So from a history point of view, these manuscripts play a critical role in understanding our own heritage, in understanding how our societies have developed, how religions have developed, how empires they rose to power, they fell, and to just to gain greater insight into ancient knowledge systems. And that is why experts consider them as a treasure trove of wisdom and knowledge. Indian manuscripts in particular are considered to be extremely rich in information that they hold, given the rich civilizational cultural heritage of India, of ancient and medieval India. Right, these manuscripts obviously contains very valuable information, and they could be in many different language, including some ancient medieval language as well. The majority of these manuscripts are in Sanskrit, but there are several manuscripts which are available in many different languages, such as Brahmi, Kushan, Godi Lakshar, Maithali, and that clear. Estimated manuscripts from India is around 10 million plus. This is what historians estimate. So as to conserve and uphold and protect these manuscripts, we already have national mission called National Mission for Manuscripts, which is an autonomous body that is running the initiative under Ministry of Culture. A dedicated organization has been set up to protect and conserve the manuscripts, and it functions as an autonomous body under the Culture Ministry, which preserves the manuscripts, wealth of India, documents, all the knowledge, digitizes the manuscripts and make it available for research and experts for further studies and analysis. Now let just give you an example, understand why these manuscripts are so significant and which is a challenge we are facing in conserving them. Some of you might have heard about Bakshali manuscript, one of the most important manuscripts to have emanated from India. The Bakshali manuscript is an ancient mathematical text. It essentially signifies the progress of the Indian civilization in the field of mathematics, science, etc. It is this manuscript which contains one of the earliest recorded examples of the use of zero, the number zero, which is believed to have originated from the Indian subcontinent, from Indian civilization. Right, I am sure you know that role of number zero in mathematics and in science, in every other domain. One of the earliest documented evidences of the usage of zero, the application of zero is documented in the Bakshali manuscript that is dated to around 3rd or 4th century. Unfortunately, this important manuscript is not in India, thanks to British, as they looted our wealth and resources. They have looted some critical manuscript as well. Today it's in one of the libraries at the University of Oxford. So India is making all possible attempts to either retrieve and bringing them back, or at least make copies of manuscripts, digitize them and upload them onto a digital portal. So that is the reason why the government is considering a bill which can establish the processes and the institutions needed to uphold a manuscript heritage, the intellectual heritage of India. So let us look at some of the provisions in this proposed bill in the concept paper, which was been published by the Ministry of Culture, which key provisions included. So Hindu is reporting this, so basic sources in the Ministry of Culture, and according to these sources, the primary objective of the bill is to document all the possible Indian manuscripts. And estimated there are around 10 million plus Indian manuscripts, at least as much as possible. The goal is to document them and catalog them, create a digital catalog, ensure that the information is accurate, up to date, and lay down the conditions through which these manuscripts can be accessed by the public for the purposes of research, studies and analysis. Researchers, academicians, right, they could gain a lot of insight by gaining access to these documents. So through the bill, the government is planning not to just to document and catalog and preserve them, but also to ensure that the public, the researchers, academicians have right access to it by establishing procedures for that. So that the proposal is to establish an authority, a 10-member National Manuscripts Authority, which will be the regulatory body. This authority is proposed to be headed by the Ministry of Culture. The Culture Ministry would be the chairperson along with the 9 members who would be secretaries of key ministries like Culture Ministry, Finance Ministry, Education Ministry, etc., along with the Vice Chancellor of Central Sanskrit University and few special advice invitees from state government and few private agency as well. So essentially this proposed authority will have representation for the government and for few non-profit entities as well. So research scholars, academicians would also be brought on board as member along with the top government officials such as secretary of these key ministries. So this proposed body would be headed by the culture ministry as a chairperson. It would be the apex policy making body with regard to conservation of manuscript. Essentially it would be the highest level decision making body to protect and conserve the manuscripts and digitize them and determines its usage. The conditions of its access to the public, this authority will be given the power of a civil court. According to this reports, it will have the powers of the civil court to regulate the allocations of access to manuscripts. It will also establish an investigation wing within the authority. A dedicated investigation wing will be set up to deal with the cases of theft and as well as discretion of these texts, because when it comes to cultural heritage, India has been a victim of theft and desecration. In fact, there is an organized criminal mafia that thrives on such antique historical heritage and such items. For example, there are thousands of critical idols, important idols that have been stolen and trafficked around the world, sold to the private collectors and museums abroad. So India is in process of retrieving them as a part of our effort to uphold and protect our cultural heritage. So there are cases where manuscripts are stolen, right? So since they have a lot of historical monetary value, right, there are bidders, buyers who are ready to pay large sum of money to procure these text. It is important to have a investigation wing to keep a check on theft and act of desecration. The proposal is also to establish a collaboration between the National Manuscript Authority and universities and educational institutions, so that the government can work with research scholars, give them fellowships and scholarships to encourage them to study these manuscripts and draw valuable lessons from it, document the traditional knowledge. There is also proposal to establish a dedicated digital portal where all the manuscripts will be digitized, indexed, catalogued and will be uploaded, so that researchers and the public can have access to it by downloading these documents as per the process laid down by the authority. So essentially the authority will also have the power to take over the manuscript as well from private collectors if required. Let us say there is a museum abroad, or let us say there is a private collector in India who has somehow gotten hold of important manuscript. So the authority will negotiate with this private collector to purchase the manuscript for a certain amount. They will pay a certain price and take over the manuscript. And even this provision is likely to be added in this proposed bill. So this is what explains the importance of manuscripts and key provisions that are being proposed in this upcoming bill. Now some of you might think, why do we need a law for this, right? A law is necessary because as I told you, studying manuscripts and applying those lessons, the knowledge in modern times can actually help in today's socio-economic development. It will not only uplift our cultural heritage, but it also contributes to a nation's growth, because eventually our future is tied to our past, right? So as I told you, there are ancient manuscripts that hold valuable lessons as far as social, cultural and economic developments are concerned, correct? So it's very important to document the manuscripts in India as well as abroad. Try and bring them back as much as possible, right? A number of manuscripts are in Sanskrit, but there are several manuscripts which are in different ancient languages, lost languages. So it requires specialized research. It requires the help of historians, linguists and anthropologists to apply their minds to decipher the information and apply that in current times or to improve our understanding of history. That is why a dedicated law is necessary, so that apex body like NMA can be established to regulate the utilization of these manuscripts and also to conserve these manuscripts. Now please make a note of this data. According to the National Mission on Manuscripts, 3.3 lakh manuscripts have been digitized, that contains around 3.1 crore folio documents, out of which 70,000 have been made available online for public access. But this is still a very small number. We have millions of manuscripts which are yet to be digitized, which are yet to be made accessible to public and researchers. That is why you need a dedicated law in place and an authority that can guide this process. So I feel this topic is very, very important. Even though it's a small topic, we have tried expanding the discussion because I felt it's very important for art and culture under GS paper 1. Now let us move on into the next topic in the next video. Thanks for watching.